Okay, you ready? John Paul Langbroek, Member for Service Paradise. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here today, and I am here to express concerns about a couple of issues when it comes to Indigenous health provision and a specific issue about Yarrabah. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were advised that there was an issue with copper contamination in the water at the health centre in Yarrabah, and the government was at great pains to say that this was nothing to worry about, nothing to be concerned about. Now today there are revelations that there is lead contamination in the Kindy, and so there are real concerns about how has this been allowed to happen. The question is, for the Labor government, how has this been allowed to occur? Indigenous health is very important throughout Queensland. We've had the issue about copper contamination at the health centre, and now apparently there's lead contamination in the water at the Kindy. These are issues that the Queensland government has had years to deal with. Queenslanders want to know that whether you're Indigenous or whether you're not Indigenous, that health services throughout regional and rural Queensland are just as good as those that are being provided in metropolitan areas. And here today we have an issue very specifically at Yarrabah, where it seems that there's now lead contamination in the water at the Kindy, and that's really not good enough for those young people, as well as the copper contamination that was in the health centre just a couple of weeks ago. At the time we were assured that there was nothing to be concerned about when it was just at the health centre. Now the question is, why is this also occurring with lead contamination at the Kindy? But that ties in with some of the other concerns from an Auditor-General's report today into Indigenous health services, which points out that Indigenous Queenslanders are not receiving the types of treatments that they should be, and there's not the backup from Queensland Health that there should be when it comes to serious issues that affect Indigenous Queenslanders. And the report today is particularly damning, and I want to read some of the issues that are issues that Queensland Health should know about. Some of these issues go back to 2010, when it comes to cultural capability and dealing with Indigenous Queenslanders, some of whom who are leaving specialist appointments or not turning up at all, leaving emergency departments because they're not quite sure when they're going to be seen. Other issues such as dealing with the patient travel subsidy scheme. It was recommended in 2017 that something be done about this, and nothing's been done. Even from the hospital and health service staff themselves, they're saying that they don't have the capacity to be able to do the things that Queensland Health have been advised that they should. And some of the quotes are really quite damning. When it comes to issues like discharging from hospital against medical advice, leaving an emergency department before being seen, missing specialist outpatient appointments, Queensland Health has not developed any implementation plans since releasing the framework in 2010. The report goes on and on. It says that the hospital and health service staff say that there's been lots of government initiatives that are announced with great fanfare, but fail to make real change. So the question for the Palaszczuk Labor government today is, specifically at Yarrabah, how did this happen? How has it been allowed to happen that we've got water contamination when we've been reassured that there was no issue a couple of weeks ago? The problem is obviously far more widespread than we were led to believe, but across the whole system, how has the government had over 13 years to deliver real change for people in Indigenous communities, and they're really not delivering any, according to the Auditor-General?
What are the next steps now, I suppose? You're asking these questions, but want answers, but action too?
Well, we clearly need to see action for Indigenous Queenslanders and anyone who lives in regional and remote Queensland, especially when the government have had over 13 years to act. They've had 13 years to act, and this Auditor-General's report today proves that they're big on announcements but very poor on delivery.
Were you shocked to see the findings?
Well, I'm shocked to hear that the government's been advised of some of these proposals 13 years ago, 6 years ago, and even their own staff are saying the government's big on announcements but very poor on delivery.
Do you have any questions, Sam?
You could have taken in that time?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that any announcement that's been made 13 years ago and hasn't been acted on really begs the question as to whether the Labor government is just making announcements and then saying, don't worry about it, we don't have to deliver it because no one's going to check on it. Today, the Auditor-General has revealed they've been advised about many things over 13 years and 6 years ago, and they've basically done none of them. and the staff even say that they're big on announcements but poor on delivery.
Does that work mean extensive investment in infrastructure for clean water, or what would that entail?
Well, there are two separate issues here. So the water contamination at Yarrabah needs to be better explained. Sorry, the water contamination at Yarrabah needs to be explained adequately. 2 weeks ago, it was supposedly only the health centre. Now we see the kindy being implicated. So obviously the people of Yarrabah need to have specific answers, whether it's infrastructure or whether it's something to do with the filtration system. That's up to Queensland Health and the local community to have identified.
Do you know what
Great.
measures are being put in place in the community at the moment? Do they have to rely on
No. I've been to Yarrabah just a few months ago, and they have a water system that's like any metropolitan water system, but there are clearly problems with it. When the first problems were identified a couple of weeks ago, Yarrabah residents and we in the opposition were assured that it was just the health centre and it was nothing to worry about. I think all parents would be concerned to hear that there is concern with lead levels at a kindergarten, and that's what we're expressing our concern about. Sam, did you have something else?
I'm happy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Good to talk to you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.